Tonight, breaking news at the border. Title 42 ordered to remain in place. A judge placing a temporary restraining order, preventing the Biden administration from lifting Title 42, the planned end of the controversial COVID-19 policy, which has been used to expel migrants. Kristen Welker live with the late-breaking details. Also breaking tonight, Russia's blackmail. Putin weaponizing his most valuable resource, cutting off gas lines running to Poland and Bulgaria. Global leaders condemning the move, calling it retaliation for sending aid to Ukraine. But could this move affect fuel prices here at home? Recession warning, the major banks sounding the alarm, predicting the U.S. is headed for a major recession, why interest rates could be to blame, and could a downturn last all the way into 2024? COVID confusion, Dr. Anthony Fauci saying the U.S. is, quote, out of the pandemic phase, while the CDC is still fighting lifting the mask mandate on planes, buses, and trains. This as cases are on the rise in 36 states. So what does the new normal look like? Plus, fillers for followers? The growing trend, social media stars scoring free cosmetic procedures, everything from Botox to breast implants, to promote it all on their accounts. The problem? Many of their followers are very young and very impressionable. Why one influencer told us he'll never post about his surgeries ever again. And wild motorcycle escape, the high-speed pursuit filmed from a helicopter, the suspect racing down a railroad track, flipping off his bike, then fleeing on foot. Top story starts right now. And good evening. As we come on the air tonight, we are following late-breaking news. A judge issuing a temporary restraining order stopping the Biden administration from lifting Title 42. The controversial policy has been in effect since the spring of 2020. The rule, created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, has been used to expel migrants and prevent them from seeking asylum here in the U.S. The Biden administration had planned to lift the measure on May 23rd, but lawmakers on both sides of the aisle feared it would lead to a border surge and that the administration was not properly prepared. Lawmakers grilling Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over his handling of the issue, calling on him to resign. NBC's chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker followed it all for us. She joins us now with that breaking news. Kristen, good evening.
Hi, Tom. Good evening to you. Well, that's right. The judge essentially made official a pause that he put in place earlier this week. Here's the bottom line. The judge saying late tonight the Biden administration cannot lift Title 42 early for at least 14 days while the legal wrangling continues. This is a political flashpoint that is adding pressure to the Biden administration in a critical midterm election year. Tonight, with fears an already record migrant surge could soon rise, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas grilled on Capitol Hill.
We're losing our country down there. We need you to resign.
Congressman, I couldn't disagree with you more when you state that our nation's sovereignty is disintegrating.
The Biden administration facing bipartisan criticism over its decision to end a COVID border restriction called Title 42. U.S. officials tell NBC News 170,000 migrants are waiting in Mexico, planning to cross the border when Title 42 is scheduled to be lifted May 23rd. Mayorkas today acknowledging the surge.
With the Title 42 public health order set to be lifted, we expect migration levels to increase.
Mayorkas saying in preparation to lift it, the administration will send additional medical supplies and personnel to the border, speed up case processing, and crack down on cartels.
We have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States.
But tonight, Republicans blaming President Biden's border policies. Last year, there was an all-time record of 1.7 million illegal border crossings. And just last month, 221,000 migrants crossed into the U.S., the highest monthly total ever recorded.
That I've never seen the border more broken. It is not under operational control. It is out of control.
All right, Kristen joins us again. Kristen, do we think the White House is going to fight this so they can end up lifting Title 42? I know you have some new reporting tonight.
Well, they could. Look, here's what we know, Tom. The administration has not officially reacted yet, but based on my conversations here, this is what we're watching for. In mid-May, the judge will hold another hearing and could move to block Title 42 indefinitely. I'm told the administration is discussing right now what it will do if that happens and whether it would appeal. Just taking a step back, though, Tom, Democrats are deeply divided over this issue. Some Democratic senators, particularly those who are facing tough re-election battles, are urging the administration to keep Title 42 in place, while many other Democratic lawmakers say it's time to lift the restriction, calling it cruel to migrants. A Biden official telling me late tonight this latest court ruling does not prevent them from moving forward with plans in case Title 42 is in fact lifted at the end of May. Tom?
Kristen Welker leading us off tonight. Kristen, we thank you for that. We want to move now to Ukraine, where Vladimir Putin's war is stretching beyond the borders of the country he invaded. The Russian president taking drastic retaliatory action against two of its closest neighbors. Russia's state-owned energy company shutting down its gas supply lines to Poland and Bulgaria. The head of the European Commission immediately calling the move blackmail for sending aid to Ukraine. That aggressive move from Russia coming amidst a glimmer of diplomatic hope. American prisoner and Marine veteran Trevor Reed freed today after serving 3 years in a Russian jail. The U.S. sending a Russian pilot back in exchange. We'll have more on that emotional return in a moment, but we begin our Ukraine coverage with Putin's latest intimidation tactic. Tom Costello has that story.
Vladimir Putin's new threats have Europe and the world on edge tonight after Moscow cut off Poland and Bulgaria, two NATO allies, from natural gas and oil supplies after they refused to pay in rubles rather than the standard dollars and euros. Speaking to Russian lawmakers, Putin promised to respond quickly if outside countries interfere in Ukraine, saying our response to counter-assaults will be lightning fast. We have all the tools for this, the kind that no one else can boast of right now, and we won't brag. We will just use them if needed. Today's move represents the first time Russia has cut off oil and gas supplies since Putin warned unfriendly countries would have to pay in Russia's struggling currency.
This is the type of step, the type of almost weaponizing energy supplies that we had predicted that Russia could take in this conflict.
The European Commission calls Moscow's latest move blackmail. The U.S. now pledging to send more liquefied natural gas to Europe as it weans itself off Russian supplies.
No one can assume that this is the end. This is probably just the beginning of what we're about to experience in terms of the disruption to gas flows.
And Europe relies heavily on Russian energy supplies. Nearly 3/4 of Bulgaria's natural gas comes from Russia. For Poland, it's nearly half, though the countries say they have enough reserve to last through the summer. Already, natural gas prices are rising in Europe and the U.S.
Putin is going all out on this war, and he's sending the message that to the best of his ability, he's going to use Russian energy exports as a weapon.
All right, Tom joins us now. Tom, let's pick up right where you left off there, but I want to start in Europe first. This move by Russia is further isolating Putin, right? But it's also forcing countries to figure out other energy strategies. Is there a way for these countries to hold off and try to get gas and even coal through other channels?
Well, the liquefied natural gas option right now that we see the United States and Qatar and other countries trying to rush into Europe, that will certainly help. And Europe right now has time on its side. We're in the springtime right now. There isn't as much of a demand for natural gas as there will be come the fall or come the winter. You know, my own mother-in-law is living in Europe, and she complained that how high natural gas prices were this year, they could get even higher next winter.
Affecting so many across the continent. Let's bring it back here to the States now. How is this new move and the war in general impacting prices?
Well, diesel prices hit a record high today. Gas prices are also going up because there's less Russian crude on the global market. And natural gas prices are expected to slowly drift up in the United States as Russia continues to put the squeeze on Europe. That could be well into the fall, Tom.
Tom Costello for us. Tom, thank you for that. Now to the surprise prisoner swap between the U.S. and Russia. A former U.S. Marine jailed in Moscow traded for a convicted Russian drug trafficker. Tonight, that Marine's family is overwhelmed with relief, but also knowing other Americans wait in anguish, hoping for the same result. Here's Maggie Vespa.
Tonight, a dramatic show of diplomacy that would stun the world in times of peace. A former U.S. Marine seen weakened, sick, and crossing a Russian tarmac to freedom. This video broadcast on Russian state TV and not independently verified by NBC News.
Thank y'all for coming.
Back home in Texas, Trevor Reed's parents say their prayers are answered.
Finally, after waiting all this time, I'm going to be able to hug my kid, put my arms around him.
Reed's release, the result of a stunning prisoner exchange between the United States and Russia. The U.S. swapping the 30-year-old former Marine for a convicted Russian drug trafficker sentenced here in the States. The president tweeting tonight, welcoming Reed home. The White House adding the need to act was urgent. Reed's parents said he'd recently complained of a fever, that he was coughing up blood, signs of advanced tuberculosis.
He's going to be able to not only be reunited with his family, but to receive the treatment he needed from the United States.
Reed's harrowing ordeal began during a 2019 trip to Russia. Authorities claiming he drunkenly assaulted an officer. The sentence? 9 years in prison.
Sorry, we didn't hear that, Trevor.
U.S. ambassadors watched the case closely, arguing Reed was wrongfully detained, his family maintaining his innocence. In the end, Reed's key to freedom? Konstantin Yaroshenko, a Russian pilot convicted in the U.S. in 2010 of conspiring to smuggle cocaine. Tonight, he heads home after serving more than half of a 20-year sentence. The historic swap shining a light on other cases of Americans detained in Russia, awaiting their fate.
Even though I've got a medical condition that prohibits this, you can see the treatment.
In 2020, former Marine Paul Whelan was sentenced to 16 years in Russian jail on suspicion of spying, a charge he flatly denies. Then there's WNBA star and Olympic gold medalist Brittany Griner. Griner was arrested in February after Russian officials said they found vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her luggage. She faces 10 years in prison. Her wife on Instagram last month asked for privacy as they continue to work on getting her home safely. Tonight, an outcry on social media. One person tweeting, "Don't forget about Brittany Griner." The State Department saying in an interview today, her case is a, quote, top priority. In the midst of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, diplomatic ties frayed, but one American family soon to be reunited, while others wonder in agony, why not them?
And Maggie joins us now live from Los Angeles. Maggie, that video from Russian state TV is stunning to watch. That supposedly Reed boarding a plane, he looks so much different just physically. Do we know when he's set to arrive and how he's doing?
Well, Tom, his parents saying that he called them from that plane to say that it wouldn't be tonight, hopefully tomorrow, but he is definitely on his way. And they were also alarmed by how he looked in that video from Russian state TV, saying he looks thin and just not well. And tonight, like any mom and dad, they just want to get their son home and get him treatment as soon as possible. Tom.
All right, we thank you for that story tonight. We're moving on now as the Reed family celebrates tonight the family of Paul Whelan, as we just heard there, a former Marine sentenced to 16 years in a Russian jail on suspicion of spying, a charge he denies, is still waiting for answers. I want to bring in one of Paul's biggest advocates, his brother David Whelan. David, thanks for joining Top Story tonight. I know today is a very difficult day for you and your family. It's been a roller coaster, really. What was your reaction to hearing that Trevor had just been freed?
Well, we're thrilled for the Reed family. It's great news whenever a wrongful detainee or hostage is freed. Like any family, you want your family member back. And so that's good news. It was pretty devastating for our family, though, because we would have hoped that Paul would have been released, either with Trevor or in whatever concessions that the U.S. government had made. So that's been disappointing. But as I say, it's nice to know that Trevor's going home.
Your sister Elizabeth responded to a State Department official who announced the release, and she said, quote, I want to put this on the screen here. Our elderly parents have to give Paul Whelan the news that he has been left behind in Russia to an unknown fate. We have no hope to give him. So I have to ask you, has your family lost faith that the Biden administration can bring Paul home?
I don't think so. I think it's a point in time. Paul called today on his normal daily call from prison, and he had to explain that he had learned about the prison transfer on Russian news and had it translated to him in Russian. And his first question to my parents was, why was I left behind? And how does a parent explain that? So I think we're frustrated for Paul that he continues to be stuck in this injustice. But the Biden administration, I think, has done up till now a better job than the previous administration. And we can only continue to hope that while they have made difficult decisions to secure Trevor Reed's release, that in the future there will be other opportunities to make concessions or to outright put the Russians in a position where they have to release Paul. But we'll just have to wait and see.
I'm curious, the war in Ukraine and now this prisoner swap, did it give you hope sort of in a strange way that maybe there could be some diplomacy done to bring him back?
Well, I think we always have that hope. And I think the thing that we worry about most is that the diplomatic relationship falls apart so much that they aren't talking about anything. And so even if they're yelling at each other, that may be better than nothing. And I think the thing that Trevor Reed's release shows is that there are opportunities, there are diplomatic channels that remain open, and they may be on life support, but they remain there. And so we will put our hope in those relationships working. I think additionally, we're looking at the sanctions that have been placed on Russia and hoping that it cracks both the government and the nation. And I hope that they will not be lifted until Paul and Brittany and anybody else who it needs to be freed can be freed.
As we mentioned, you know, and you just bring up Brittany, a high-profile WNBA player in prison as well, like your brother. Where do you think your brother stands on the list of Americans, if you will, awaiting release?
I don't believe in a hierarchy. I think that each case is individual and each case has its own challenges. I had at least hoped that if the U.S. government was doing a negotiation with Russia, that it would bring all of the Americans home. But now it looks like each person is on their own track. And I think each train will get to the station or not in its own way. And hopefully they will all reach their destination and everybody will come home.
If you had a chance to speak to Vladimir Putin, what would you tell him?
That arbitrary detention doesn't really work. He has been arguing, and his legislature has been arguing for getting Russian prisoners home year after year after year. And they've made a mockery of Russia, of the nation, of Russia's presence in the world, and of its judicial system. And it's a shame, really, because Russia could be a great country, and it won't be. It will remain small as the president.
David Whelan, we thank you for your time tonight. We'll be thinking about you, your brother, and your family. And in Ukraine, the war continues to rage on as Russia intensifies its attacks on the ground, and Ukrainians continue to struggle to reunite with loved ones. NBC's Kelly Kobiella following it all from Ukraine.
Today, Russia intensifying its assault, hitting a key bridge in the port city of Odessa. In besieged Mariupol, the last Ukrainian soldiers still holding out inside this steel plant.
How is your husband doing?
Marina Schumacher's husband is fighting in that plant. She managed to escape the city with her 2 sons, Max, who's 8 and has autism, and 18-year-old Mark.
That's fighting age, isn't it? Do you worry about having to go off to fight?
No. When Mark says he's thinking about it, worry washes over his mom's face. Marina says she doesn't want him to fight because it would be too much to worry about her son and husband at the same time. I've been with my husband 27 years, she says. I have no idea what I would do without him. She says she lives message to message, waiting for his next text.
What was his last message?
They all want to live, she says, and hope that they're not forgotten. And tonight, the commander inside that plant is pleading again for a rescue, not just for his soldiers, but for hundreds of civilians, Tom, who are still stranded at that plant. Tom?
So many trapped in that country. All right, Kelly, thank you for that. Back home now with the latest on COVID. Dr. Fauci making headlines declaring last night that the country is out of the pandemic. Today, clarifying that he meant we are in a transitional phase. His comments adding to the confusion around the state of this pandemic and the recent changes in mask mandates. Zincle Esemwa has more.
Tonight, a major announcement from America's top doctor that after more than 2 years and nearly 1 million deaths,
we are certainly right now in this country out of the pandemic phase.
One would think this statement would spark hope and optimism. Instead, it's only added to confusion over mixed messaging. Though declaring the pandemic phase to be over, Dr. Fauci also said he will be skipping the White House Correspondents' Dinner. His reason? COVID precautions, leaving many wondering what an end to the pandemic means.
Dr. Fauci has said the pandemic phase of coronavirus is over. What does that mean to you?
It means I can take my mask off. I just don't think that's true. Like, science has proven otherwise.
The confusion doesn't end there. Just last week,
Transportation Security Administration will no longer enforce the federal mandate requiring masks in all U.S. airports and on-board aircraft.
a judge striking down a Biden-era mask mandate for trains and public transit. The president said this when asked about the topic.
Mr. President, should people continue to wear masks on planes?
That's up to them.
But days later, his administration appealed the ruling in an effort to return to mask wearing on public transit. And while airlines were quick to drop mask mandates, many airports did not.
There's a mix of people wearing masks, not wearing masks.
Do you feel clear on where and when you're expected to wear a mask, or is it uncertain?
There should be more clarification. Honestly, I just don't care anymore because I feel like whatever the strain is probably, let me guess, more contagious and less deadly.
There's new evidence that officials haven't known exactly how many people are getting sick. A study by the CDC shows nearly 60% of the U.S. and 3 out of 4 children have been infected with the Omicron variant.
There are infections that are not getting centrally reported, so I do believe that there's an undercount.
I feel like just a month ago we were being told that things are getting worse again.
Take New York City. Here, hospitalizations are small, the 7-day average reaching new lows. But for the unvaccinated, risk of hospitalization is a whopping 20 times above the city's average.
If I get sick, it's my fault, not what Fauci says, not what anybody else says.
I feel like things are safer now.
I mean,
Safer.
It's a crazy day to ask because your sister just got COVID.
Yeah.
The fact that there's no hospitalizations now is definitely comforting, and tomorrow looks a lot better.
Okay, Zinkley joins us now live from New York City. Zinkley, you got a chance here to speak to a lot of people. I know you asked that one family if they were confused. What's the sense? Are people generally confused? Or are they just kind of figuring out day by day?
Yeah, Tom, I think the word of the day has been confusion. Many people I spoke with didn't even know that Fauci had said we had transitioned out of the pandemic phase. It's important to note he clarified we are not out of the woods yet. But generally, those who are choosing to wear masks, everyone I spoke with said they're doing it because of their communities, not necessarily for themselves, but for the vulnerable, the immunocompromised, many of whom are children who are still not eligible for the vaccine, Tom. So while a lot has improved when it comes to COVID, many are still facing very real risks. Tom?
Zinkley Esamwa, we appreciate you reporting on that one. For more on the future of COVID, I want to bring in Dr. Amish Adulja. He joins us now. He's a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins University Center for Health Security. Doctor, thanks so much for joining Top Story. I know you're not a spokesperson for Dr. Fauci, but why is there such a mixed message coming out of public health officials in the U.S.? We have been at this for 2 years now, right? First, he says we are in this transitional phase or we're coming out of the pandemic. Then he decides not to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Fine, that's probably a better choice anyway. We'll probably have more fun at home. But we also have the CDC that is appealing that judge's order to bring masks back on planes, buses, and trains. So it seems like there's no direction at this point. Can you explain what's happening right now?
I think this really stems from a lack of clarity on what our goals are with this pandemic and with this virus. I think you have to realize that this is not a virus that can be eradicated or eliminated. We're always going to have a baseline number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. And our goal was really to shift disease to the milder spectrum, to remove the ability of this virus to overwhelm hospitals. And from that sense, yes, the pandemic acute phase is over in this country because we have so much immunity in the population that we are unlikely to see hospitals get overrun again. But there's a lot of differences in people's risk tolerances. And the fact is, cases still occur. And many people are not comfortable with the fact that the post-pandemic world is not 2019. It really never can be 2019. And I think they have to be really honest with the population and just say that this is the new normal, that we're going to have this baseline risk of COVID-19. And you've got to learn how to risk calculate and get vaccinated and use the tools that we have.
How should we interpret when we have data? Because, experts have been predicting the beginning of the end for a while now, but we have 36 states that are seeing an uptick. But how should we interpret that? Because I think you brought up some really good points there in your last statements. When we're talking about this and we're reporting this out, cases are on the rise, but the cases obviously are less severe and the hospitals are not overwhelmed.
Exactly. So what we have to do is take our focus off of cases. Cases are going to go up and down. There's going to be hotspots. There's going to be new contagious variants that might appear. But so long as hospitals are not getting overrun, I think we're in a good place. so much for for so long in the pandemic, we really focus on cases because cases translated into hospitals in crisis. Now there's been this delinkage or decoupling because of vaccinations, because of antivirals, because of monoclonal antibodies. So we've got to get more attuned to looking at hospitals and hospital capacity to gauge when we should be worried, because we're always going to see cases. And I think that's the problem here, is that so many people are still focused on cases when, from a public health standpoint, a lot of us are now focused on hospitals and hospital capacity.
Dr. Adulja, what's your take on this second booster? A lot of people are they qualify for it, but they're not getting it, right? And then there's other people who say, well, I'm not going to get it. I already got the booster. I got Omicron. I feel like I have the antibodies. What's your take on that second booster for people?
I think it really should be targeted to those that are at the highest risk for severe disease. So the immunocompromised, that's one group where I think it makes sense. I don't think the general population, even a healthy 50-year-old who's gotten one booster, is probably going to benefit much from a second booster, because the benefit is transient. And if you're protected against severe disease, I think that's enough with these first-generation vaccines. Because for healthy people, getting boosted, even the first booster, doesn't really reduce your risk of severe disease, because you have a very low risk of severe disease to begin with. That's why I think that boosters from the very beginning should have been targeted towards high-risk individuals and not universalized, because I think that gives us kind of the wrong strategy. Because if we're boosting to prevent mild illness in healthy people, that's really not a strategy with these first-generation vaccines. We know it's first and second doses that keep people out of the hospital, and we still have 33% of the population that's not fully vaccinated.
Dr. Adulja, we thank you for your time. I think you make a lot of smart points at a time when a lot of people are confused. All right, we want to turn now to the economy and our segment Money Talks, what consumers and investors need to know from the business world and beyond. On Wall Street and the markets, of course, the Dow making small gains today after major losses earlier this week as the release of key economic reports fuels fears of a recession. Deutsche Bank's adding to those fears, predicting a, quote, major recession. Joining us now to break it all down is CNBC contributor Ron Insana, a man who knows the economy, who knows the markets, and apparently knows a lot about books. Ron, I want to start with that report. I know it's a single report from a single big bank, right?
Yeah.
But they are predicting this, and their thought is that the Fed has gone too far in raising rates, too fast, a point that's going to hurt the economy, because it's going to take a while for inflation, even with the rates as high as they are, to come down. Their guidepost, if you will, is the relationship between inflation and unemployment. Can you just explain to our viewers where this bank is coming from?
Well, I mean, it seems that if they're arguing that the Fed already went too far, that would be premature. If they're arguing that the Fed may go too far, that is something we all fear, that the Fed has voiced rather clearly its desire, if not its determination, to bring inflation back down to more normalized levels from the current about 8.5% or so that we see in consumer prices. Now, if the Fed were to go too far, raising interest rates in too large an amount over several different periods in the course of the next, let's say, 9 to 12 months, then, yeah, you run the risk of a recession. I mean, it's often said that the Fed will raise rates until something breaks. And we do worry about that. Now, whether it's the risk of a major recession or, as Goldman Sachs says, a 35% risk of recession, we're not quite sure. My guess is if the Fed does raise rates by a half point 4 times in a row, we'll probably see something akin to a recession late this year. I'd give it a 50-50 probability. A major recession would suggest that along with a downturn in the economy or a slowing in growth, we'd have some sort of crisis, whether it's a overseas problem in China, for instance, or the expansion of the war that further disrupts food and energy supply chains. A major recession, I think, might be a bit of a premature call.
Ron, what's your take about the Fed's move so far? Do you think they are moving too fast, or do you think they're moving at a steady clip?
Well, I mean, I would have preferred that they not talk as aggressively as they have. And again, this is one person's opinion, and there are many. There are those like Jason Furman and others who have suggested, former economic advisor to President Obama, who suggests the Fed should be moving faster. Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary.
Right, on the other side of that argument. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm not sure. I would prefer quarter point increases. I would prefer that the Fed not get aggressive in reducing its balance sheet, which is a form of tightening credit conditions, and be transparent, be methodical, and be very data dependent going forward. And I think that would be, in my mind, something that would suggest that given the strength of the economy and the resilience really of the U.S., it would be something we could absorb without too much of a body blow. if they get really aggressive, they could tip the scales.
I have two questions for you, and they are predictions, but they're about the R word, recession. Do you think this could happen before November when the midterms happen? That's the first question. And if so, some banks have predicted this recession could last till 2024. Do you think that's too long, or do you think that's about the right timing on a recession?
Well, it's strange because when we had the recession during the depths of the pandemic, it really lasted about 3 or 4 months, right? And that's when the economy completely shut down and we sheltered in place, worked from home, stopped going literally anywhere for a matter of months. And yet, as soon as we replaced the lost income and the policy response was as, focused and as large as it was, we actually came out of recession pretty quickly. So, putting a time frame on it, it's hard to do given the speed with which policymakers can respond. Will it come before November? Again, that's highly dependent on how aggressive the Fed gets, how much more China suffers economically in the grips of its pandemic and the shutdown of its economy effectively, and how long the war drags on as well. And that, again, is disrupting energy and food supplies. So we could have an external shock somewhere else in the world that could trigger something here. Right now, I would argue that it's 50-50 by the end of the year. I couldn't tell you specifically whether it would happen right before the midterms and kind of alter or exacerbate the political calculus. But, the more aggressive the Fed gets, the more aggressive China gets in locking down its economy, and the longer the war lasts, the greater the risk that we're going to see a downturn somewhere maybe before the end of the year.
Even without inflation, you mentioned those headwinds, the war in Ukraine and now the slowdown in China, possibly another stoppage in work there with the COVID cases. Ron, we love having you on Top Story. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. All right, still ahead tonight, the close call involving a bus full of children. A dump truck barreling down the road, unable to brake, the desperate effort to swerve out of the way. Plus, Donald Trump pushing back against a New York judge's decision to hold him in contempt and fine him $10,000 a day. What he's saying about an investigation into his businesses. And fillers for followers. Some social media stars getting cosmetic procedures for free if they post about it. Why one of those influencers is now questioning the true cost of those posts when so many followers are so young. That story coming up. And we are back now with a story that may hit close to home if you or your kids spend a lot of time on TikTok. Influencers posting about their plastic surgeries and cosmetic enhancements and getting their procedures comped in return. But is all of this having an unintended influence on their young followers? Isa Gutierrez spoke with 2 users with massive followings and has more now on the true cost of this phenomenon.
Tonight, social media influencers promoting cosmetic procedures to millions of followers, including young teens.
1, 2, 3, and ouch.
Young content creators like Sebastian Bales are offered free and discounted cosmetic work in exchange for social media shoutouts.
If you want injections anywhere, if you guys want to get fillers anywhere, just go for it. Life is too short to not be happy with yourself.
I sat down with Bales for Top Story. He has nearly 13 million followers on TikTok.
What have you gotten done for free or with a discount because of your social media profile?
Okay. I've gotten my cheekbones, I've gotten jaw, my nose, and then also eyebrow lift and Botox and things like that on the forehead.
It started with free lip filler when he was just 18. From there, the procedures escalated in a way he sometimes wishes he could take back.
Do you have regrets about work you've gotten done?
I think so. Yeah, my face has forever changed. I actually at the time was getting flooded with DMs with companies reaching out saying, hey, we would love to have you come in, do a video, whatever it was, to help promote their business. And it was like a collaboration. I mean, why would you say no to free lips or a free nose?
What do these clinics or these doctors want you to do in exchange for free procedures or discounted procedures?
I think it really depends on the influencer. All they would ask is you do a selfie and tag the company. My audience loves seeing me get crazy things done to myself or getting hurt.
Bales says his average follower is between the ages of 12 to 16.
Oh, I'm positive that someone has probably gotten work done or gone to the same doctor that I went to because I, went to that doctor. They want to get the same thing done.
Social media has boosted the plastic surgery industry for years.
For us, it really has been priceless.
Kristen Gunn is a medical spa owner in Texas, offering a variety of non-surgical cosmetic procedures. She tells me clients have been trending younger.
Anywhere from even 18, people turn 18, they want to get their lips done. It's important to go to somebody that's honest, that will say, you don't need that. Oh my gosh, come back in 5 years, come back in 10 years.
In an email to NBC News, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons said, quote, "We're aware that young people are watching, and we always try to approach things ethically, professionally, and to have a message of a positive body image, especially for young girls."
I knew I wanted a nose job from when I was like 9 years old.
Anna is 19.
I do social media and OnlyFans.
She's open with her followers about the work she's had done, ranging from cheek filler and non-invasive liposuction to breast augmentation and rhinoplasty.
Lip blushing, day 2, healing update.
The more followers she gets, the more offers come in to get procedures done at a lower or no cost in exchange for a post. But Anna says at times, insecurities stemming from social media are the reason she's wanted to change her appearance in the first place.
You never know, like there could be a little girl behind that screen that's looking at you and like saying, oh wow, like I wish I had lips like that, or why doesn't my nose look like that?
TikTok does not allow cosmetic procedures or providers to advertise through official TikTok ads. But those rules don't apply to videos like Anna's.
Since it's technically like receiving PR products, except it's procedures, you don't have to put ad.
TikTok telling NBC News in an email, "We strive to be as transparent as possible with our community and expect the same from those on our platform. This is why we require that users disclose when they develop branded content."
Do you plan on getting other procedures in the future?
Not as of right now.
I have not posted anything about work done in probably almost 2 years now because I'm afraid of, just altering people's mind, especially kids that are so impressionable. I mean, I dealt with eating disorders growing up, and it was because of everything that you saw on the media that like consumed you and made you believe that's what you have to look like. And it's just so funny how I was doing the same thing.
All right, Issa joins us now live in studio. Issa, this is so serious. And these influencers had a message for all the kids that follow them?
That's right, Tom. Both of them said, if you're a teenager and you're considering getting one of these procedures done, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for other people, or because of negative comments that other people have made? If you think about it a lot and you decide, hey, I'm doing this for me, then they say go ahead and do it. Power to you, especially if you have the means to. But if it's not for you, then do not do it, because you might regret it later on. And I also want to give a shout out, Tom, to Kat Tenbarge, our NBCNews.com reporter. She's been on top of this story and really helped us out with this report today.
Great reporting by Kat on our digital team. All right, Issa, thank you as well. Still ahead, a wild motorcycle chase in Oklahoma City looking like it came straight out of a movie. How police eventually caught that suspect. We'll show you. Stay with us. All right, we are back now with Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with a dramatic chase in Oklahoma City. Take a look at this video. Police say they tried to pull over this motorcycle rider Wednesday morning. He didn't stop, clearly. Instead, started speeding along some railroad tracks before, you see it right here, goes airborne, flying over his handlebars, but then he sort of lands and keeps running. Tries to hide under a bridge. The suspect eventually taken into custody. No word yet on why he ran from police. Dash cam video capturing a close call in Ohio. Take a look at this one. This dump truck losing control of its brakes as it was heading toward a bus full of school children. The quick-thinking driver of that bus swerving out of the way just in time, narrowly missing the bus and cars in the other lane as well. Police say the incident is still under investigation. And former President Trump appealing a contempt ruling we told you about yesterday and the $10,000 day fine that comes with it. A New York judge holding Trump in contempt and imposing that fine on Monday for his failure to respond to a subpoena from the state's attorney general. The AG is seeking documents from Trump in her civil investigation into his business practices. The former president denies wrongdoing, calling the investigation politically motivated. All right, next up now, a look inside a Russian-controlled city in Ukraine. Citizens in Kherson standing up for their freedom in the face of a brutal Russian occupation. Ralph Sanchez spoke to a man that escaped and a woman that is still there.
Tonight, in Russian-occupied Kherson, this is the price of resistance. Vladimir Putin's forces appearing to use tear gas to disperse peaceful protesters. At least 4 civilians injured, according to Ukrainian authorities. President Zelensky hailing the demonstrators. "I'm grateful to everyone who does not give up," he says. Kherson fell in the first days of the war, now under complete Russian control for nearly 2 months. Russia's flag flies over government buildings and its troops control all movement in the city. But the occupiers unable to stamp out Kherson's desire to be free.
The people in Kherson were coming out onto the street despite being held practically at gunpoint by the Russian soldiers.
Artur Samarikov, a playwright, escaped the city 2 weeks ago. We met him in the relative safety of Lviv.
What is it like for people inside Kherson right now?
Fear and despair, moral confusion, he says. He told us food is hugely expensive and in short supply. People stand in lines for hours for basic goods. When Artur escaped, he says he left his smartphone behind, saying he'd seen Russian troops searching them at checkpoints.
Were you afraid at that checkpoint?
Yes, I was afraid, he said. There were rumors our convoy was going to be attacked. Before annexing Crimea in 2014, Russian forces staged a referendum. They claimed 97% voted to become part of Russia. Now, Zelensky warning the same playbook being prepared in Kherson, a sham referendum followed by potential annexation.
Russia loves referendums. In their mind, it makes their occupying powers more legitimate. But of course, right now, it's impossible to hide the lies.
For those inside the city, every day brings new fear. Ukraine's military saying 300 men from Kherson have been detained, some tortured, and exits from the city now blocked. Even just speaking Ukrainian can draw the wrong attention.
It's so scary, so dangerous when the soldiers were with a weapon.
We're concealing this woman's identity for her own safety.
You're a girl and you don't know what they can to do with a woman.
Terror for Kherson's women after widespread reports of rape by Russian troops occupying Bucha.
Do you think Kherson will be free from Russia one day?
Yes, absolutely.
What gives you such hope?
We want to give freedom, and in Kherson, it's Ukraine.
A city occupied by Russia, but whose heart is still firmly in Ukraine.
All right, Raf joins us now from Lviv tonight. Raf, you talked about the possibility there in your story of Russia staging one of those referendums, essentially a staged vote in Kherson. What do we know about how soon that could happen there?
Tom, the Russians haven't given any dates officially, but Ukraine's military says they are already drawing up lists of potential voters. Now, the U.S. and its allies would reject the results of any referendum, just like they did in Crimea back in 2014. And Ukraine says it is determined to regain control of Kherson, no matter how long that takes. Tom?
Raf, I'm curious, how hard was it to report this story out? Because as you mentioned, that is a city that is occupied right now. The Russians are there, and yet you were still able to find residents there who were openly willing to speak out.
Yeah, Tom, this was not straightforward. People in Kherson, understandably very concerned about their security, concerned about reprisals from Russian security forces. But a few very brave people determined to get the word out about what's happening in their city were prepared to speak to us about what's going on right now in Kherson. Tom?
Raf Sanchez from Lviv tonight for Top Story. Raf, we appreciate that. Time now for Top Story's Global Watch. In a landfill on fire in New Delhi, sending toxic smoke into the air. Local media reporting the smoke is so bad that a nearby school is closing for the rest of the week. Dump yard fires aren't uncommon in the city, but Indian Prime Minister Modi put out a warning about fire risks today, saying temperatures there were getting too hot too early. Next to a court in Myanmar convicting former leader Aung San Suu Kyi of corruption and sentencing her to 5 years in prison. It found her guilty in the first of several corruption cases against her. Last year, the country's military ousted Suu Kyi in a coup. The country has been in turmoil since then. She has denied all allegations against her. And when we come back, Twitter turmoil. Why some big names are losing hundreds of thousands of followers and others are seeing a spike. Is a change of leadership behind it? Ben Collins, who broke this story for NBC, will break it down for us. His story is now everywhere. So what's going on at Twitter? Stay with us. All right, we are back now with the turmoil on Twitter. The social media network flooded with reports of high-profile accounts losing thousands of followers after news broke of Elon Musk's deal to purchase the site on Monday. Some accounts on the political right seeing their follower counts skyrocket. By Tuesday evening, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's gaining 93,000 more followers, while former President Obama and Katy Perry, two of the most followed accounts on the platform, lost hundreds of thousands of followers. Joining us now is NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins, who broke this story for NBCNews.com. Ben covers disinformation, extremism, and the internet. Just a few beats there, Ben. Ben, first off, welcome to Top Story. You broke this story. It's now everywhere. We saw there that there seemed to be some type of connection with followers who follow people who may be sort of left-wing and people who follow some influencers on the right. What exactly happened here, and how did you pick up on this?
Yeah, a lot of people noticed that they were losing followers. They were like, is this a glitch? Did they purge a bunch of bots here? Occasionally, that's what happens with Twitter. You lose some followers, and they come back and they say, oh, we just got rid of a bunch of bot networks, and don't worry about it. Those weren't real people anyway. But when I researched Twitter this time, they did not say that. They said the opposite. They said these were authentic deactivations and authentic new accounts. The deactivations, mostly, they said, came from high-profile accounts. So, any account in the top 10 there. So that's like celebrity accounts or, otherwise like entertainment-style accounts.
Yeah, Ben, they're basically saying they're sort of saying this came about in an organic fashion. But I mean, do you buy that?
I do, and here's why. Look, people were angry, and people left the service when they learned that Elon Musk might take over this thing yesterday. And a lot of people, banded together. They said they were going to go to other services like Mastodon. And a lot of people said that they were going, and they did. And you can see left-wing politicians, people like Bernie Sanders or Barack Obama, they lost lots of followers to their account. However, Republicans gained, 80, 90,000 followers. If you were a high-profile Republican like, Governor Ron DeSantis or Marjorie Taylor Greene, they picked up 80 or 90,000 followers, while others, were losing just as many.
So you think that the Elon Musk news compelled, and we're now talking, I guess we're definitely talking about hundreds of thousands of people to either join or get off that quickly?
That's what Twitter says. Here's the thing with bot networks. They're not instantly identifiable, but it's pretty easy to find out if there's some massive operation going on. And they said that's not what it is. That's what I thought it was when I first saw it coming. I thought that it was just a pretty standard bot situation, but that's not what Twitter is saying. It's a fascinating time. And I want to stress this, by the way. It's not entirely 100% set in stone that Elon Musk is going to be the person who runs Twitter next. He has to get a bunch of financing. He has spent the day attacking Twitter employees, which seems to be against the rules of taking over this company. So all this might be for naught in the long run.
Which would be even crazier. We'd have to monitor the follower accounts after that news. Ben Collins, great to have you on Top Story. I'm sure we're going to have you back, and congratulations on that big break on this story. When we come back, one woman's good news turned into a race for her life, how a team of dispatchers and first responders got her to the finish line just in time. Stay with us. Finally tonight, it was a race against the clock for one Indiana woman in need of a life-saving double organ transplant. That's when a group of dispatchers and first responders stepped in, finishing the sprint to the hospital just in time. On a recent stormy night, the O'Daniels family got a call that would change their life. For the last 6 months, they had been waiting on word of a double organ transplant for one of the members of their family.
You never knew when the call was coming. I mean, and they were right. We didn't know it was coming.
A liver and kidney were ready for Mom Sarah at University Hospital in Indianapolis.
And we're calling to say that we have a pair of organs for you. We have a kidney and liver, and you need to be here within an hour.
The O'Daniels live more than an hour away, so Sarah started a timer on her phone.
It's an hour and 20 minutes from the University Hospital, and I have got to figure out how to cut 20 minutes off of my travel.
And it's raining and nasty.
So my husband decides that he's gonna call 911
while we're going, because I didn't want any delay.
Dispatchers in Brown County didn't have anyone to help. Their crews were responding to storm-related calls.
just got the call. They've got an hour to get to Indianapolis, and they would be at the county line before I could get anybody to them.
But thanks to some help from dispatchers in the next county over,
I had a solution for you if you guys are still on 135.
The ambulance crew had just marked back in service, was coming back down this way, and we were able to get them here as fast as we could. We knew that we were up against the clock, obviously.
When I got into the ambulance, I had 30 minutes, 28 minutes. You're getting a little scared, and it's getting a little stressful, and we're just flying through.
They told me I need to go to the 4th floor.
Okay.
with the help of that ambulance crew, the O'Daniels arrived at the hospital just in time.
When I walked into those elevators, my phone timer went off. So I had made it in my 1 hour time, but it was only because of that ambulance ride and awesome. Everyone at the fire station that allowed me to take their EMT crew.
The surgery, a success. And now just a week later, the family going back to say thank you to the team who beat the clock.
Hello!
This is exciting.
I know, right? Hi. How are you doing?
How you doing?
From first responders to now friends.
It started out as a patient contact and it has turned into a friendship. It makes me tear up a little bit. Just because, you know, I mean, it's not something we get to do very often.
We want to thank our Indianapolis station, WTHR, for their help with that story. And thanks so much for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.